The perfect investigation bonus isn't just for bragging rights. It's gonna net you way more XP and money each game and is always worth going for. And today, this is gonna be a no BS guide that will ensure you walk away getting a perfect game almost every time on Phasmophobia. Now you might be wondering, what is a perfect game? And a perfect game is 10 3-star photos, finding the bone, completing all optional objectives, and obviously guessing the ghost correctly. Now you should go for a perfect investigation every single game, as it gives a boost to your total money before the reward multiplier is added, and it scales the higher your difficulty is, and missing out on this bonus is very costly. Let's jump into how to get a perfect game, and spoiler alert, it's way easier than you think. This is going to be broken up into sections going over photos, finding the bone, objectives, and then I'll briefly touch on identifying the ghost. So this first section, I'm going to talk about how to get photos, and my advice is to become the photographer. My go-to loadout to start the game with is grabbing a flashlight, an EMF, and then obviously a photo camera. The longer you wait to start taking photos of things like interactions or ghost events, the harder it's going to be. The EMF is great as you can locate interactions to capture a photo of, but is also a great tool to actually find the ghost room. And while you're looking for the ghost room, keep your eyes peeled for the bone, as sometimes you'll just happen to stumble upon it, and there's no better feeling than finding the bone at the very start of the game. I'll get into finding the bone later, but if you happen to get the bone early, make sure to capture a photo of it. Another thing to keep in mind is if you're playing on a difficulty with a cursed object, that's a free photo and only takes a few seconds to get. Now once you found the ghost room, the best things to take pictures of are things like door touches, thrown items, firelights, or interactions with things like the crucifix, ghost writing, UV, and the easiest one is obviously going to be salt. The most important thing for getting photos is always having a camera nearby that you can quickly pick up and use at moment's notice. I think getting the 10 3-star photos is way easier than people think. There's a lot of things that are almost a 2-in-1 kind of photo. If the ghost touches a door and there's UV, you can get an interaction photo, but also a fingerprints photo. If the ghost writes in the writing book, you can get a ghost writing photo and an interaction photo. And this also applies to the crucifix. There is a window to get an interaction photo for some of these things like ghost writing or crucifix. If you were to come back way later and notice the crucifix was burned, you probably won't be able to get an interaction photo, but you'll still be able to get the burned crucifix photo. Now if it's later into the game and your book still isn't full, you can cheese your way through it a bit by placing some salt piles, and after the ghost steps in it, get a bunch of free photos. And I think I just said the word photo about a million times in that section. Next, on to finding the bone. Now there's not really pro tips to finding the bone, as it's pretty straightforward but is a bit tedious. Honestly, you're just gonna have to go room to room until you find it. There are some ways to expedite this, as you can either recruit some of your friends to help you look for it if you're playing in multiplayer, or while you're looking for things like the ghost room, hiding spots, or cursed objects, just keep your eyes peeled. And for things like large maps, it's just gonna be hit or miss, and you're just gonna hope you get lucky and find it early. And my last note for the bone is sometimes it could be in strange places. Sometimes in sinks or bathtubs, or even clipped into an object, and can be very easy to miss. A fun little side note is if you don't find the bone, in the debriefing after the mission there's a detailed statistics section, and at the bottom it'll show you where the bone location was. Now we're going to talk about optional objectives, and a lot of these are easy to knock out, but I'll cover some of these that can be a little tricky. One that can be really hard is witnessing a ghost event, as it's kind of just left up to the ghost if it decides to do one or not. And for this one, either always have a camera on you and ready to pick up at moment's notice, as events will always happen when you least expect it. If you're scrambling on the ground in the dark trying to look for a camera somewhere, it might just be a little too late. That being said, anytime there's a manifestation event, they last a pretty long time, so you're not in too big of a rush. Just focus and take your time a bit. There are a few ways you can force a ghost event. Things like the music box, tarot cards, summoning circle, and the monkey paw can all be used to force a ghost event. Just warn your teammates ahead of time and try not to die. Something you might have noticed is that witnessing a ghost event and capturing a photo of the ghost objectives essentially go hand in hand with each other. I always like to try and get a ghost photo even if it isn't an objective, It's just a good habit to get into, and it's satisfying if you pull it off. Another way to get a ghost photo is capturing the dots ghost interaction. This can be kind of hard though. Sometimes dots is going to be very visible and easy to get, and other times you only see it for a split second, so let's just hope you get an easy ghost event and capture a photo that way. You do have a final option of using the summoning circle, but it can be a little inconsistent, as if it's later into the game, you probably won't have enough sanity to fully light the circle anyway. And the last objective I want to briefly touch on is having a member of the team escape the ghost during a hunt. Just to clarify this objective a bit further, a player must get within line of sight of the ghost, and also no one can die during the hunt, as dying isn't really escaping the ghost. And the last part of a perfect game is obviously guessing the ghost correctly. This is kind of a whole other topic, and I have made a few videos covering different ghost behavior, but I would say play on professional until you feel like you have a good grasp for gameplay and are able to survive hunts. And then maybe try bumping it up to Nightmare and test your luck a little bit. Even though Nightmare only has 2 evidence pieces, you'll only be left guessing between a couple ghosts, and I feel like there's a lot of ghosts like the Wraith that have some pretty obvious abilities, while other ghosts have unique equipment interactions that can be a dead giveaway. Another thing to note is ghosts like the Obake or Hantu will have force evidences like ultraviolet or freezing temperatures respectively, and I'm pretty confident that most of you will be able to distinguish something based off of speed or a unique interaction or even an ability. I think that's going to do it for this video, so thank you so much for watching and good luck with your games.